But it actually interests me, not just that this class has helped me, but it's helped me connect new ideas that I've had for years. The events within music seems to bring a lot of joy, mostly just very good vibes. The tempo that almost feels like a story, soft, slow, singing kind of melody, then eases into something more intense that make you might that makes you might want to jump. Even in the crowd's reaction, everyone seeming to be all in tune and immersed in the sound. You can tell they're taking the audience for a ride from the singer or artist view, and the crowd listeners are all physically connected in one way, and they all sway and feel the music, even if it's the upbeat portion or the downbeat. The physical connection might be more proof of how music can connect through all of us at the same time and put us in the same mind. The Grateful Dead truly exploited these principles to human nature with their music and energy. The group picked up their name through a dictionary. First word when they opened up the book was Grateful Dead, and it meant that they wanted to confront death and see life for itself. The Grateful Dead made it a thing to get human life a step ahead. Being alive means coming to change. The main philosophy of the group was not to build something that could be torn down or last forever, but rather something that was fun. I think the community of the Grateful Dead and the Deadhead people traveled over 1,000 miles to see the shows because of this reason. There were over 100,000 tours done by artists, and one thing about it is that they loved it and even said the best day at work isn't as good as a bad day on tour. Being on tour wasn't even as a job or an inconvenience by all means to those people, but rather just a fun experience. People hitchhike in the middle of nowhere as well as making side hustles like selling bracelets to survive and have income for the entire tour. The commitment and persistence was insane. They would have methods of getting people on the shows, even if they didn't have tickets, like having people stand in some positions, then recycling or tailgating at a concert. They even basically scammed the calling cards by canceling their cards. Deadhead truly brought people together and they acted as a family. No one felt left out, bored, or even unsafe. Most Deadheads are into dead music or the lifestyle of the dead, but can also be some. There are different kinds of Deadheads that enjoy the show in their own ways. There was even a time where drugs heavily influenced, quote unquote, the ride. They discovered LSD 25. It was seen as a weapon and introduced it to a group named Kizzy. They made a thing called the acid test, and people didn't just come for their music, but their music was attached to the acid test. This brought crowd and clientele in general. This would pose use for them later on in their journey, as this would be a true human investment, the investment that would last them their entire career and could be reason for sparking their musical journeys. The drugs outside influence lead into some of the book findings. Levington actually speaks on how music influences the body's movement, their music and sound, which heavily ties into how drugs influence how you perceive music and sounds. It is said that sometimes music can be used as an external timekeeper and can help aid against handicaps and things like Parkinson's disease. Music helps reestablish the body's rhythm through music and can even help with someone who's specifically struggling to walk again. And even then, people who are struggling with such always end up having a better mood in their situation due to the music and its mood boosting factors. Levitin goes even deeper about how the brain reactions to music as well as the neural process takes place, how the music overall connects our neurons and helps influence our um, emotions, and cognition and physical health. He talks about the term called the secret chord, in which describes a deep personal connection one has with music. He mentioned how it wasn't just evolution that could shape our concept of the secret chord, meaning how we perceive music and what we think is good, but it was engraved into our very brains as a universal way of language and communicating that goes beyond what makes us different. When the body stands in a silent room, there isn't much stimulation in the mind, but only if we desire something or want to move. When sound waves are present, neurons in our bodies then start to communicate, whether we like it or not, and for the most part, we usually respond. If the sound is disturbing, we may have a negative response, like flinching to a fire truck horn. Others might be oth- might be high enough in sound, higher pitch enough in sound, and be easier to ignore. But so long as the wave hits your eardrum, brain activity is stimulated. But when we take these sounds and modify them through their pitch, tempo, volume, and overall melody, they're no longer just sounds, but we have to respect it as music. Grateful Dead has utilized the physics of sound and how to effectively use it. In some instances, the band were the speakers and the audience was the receiver, and with not any interference, the music was able to connect with every receiver in the room. So when the speaker/band plays and that music reaches their ears, they, the receiver/audience, must respond. But in most cases, because the melody is tuned and coordinated, when it touches most receptors, it may start off as bad and have, wait, no, I did not read that right.
You're doing great.
Oh, because the melody is tuned and coordinated to the person, when it touches the receptors, it has a far higher chance of sounding good. In a lot of the shows, that's what happened. The music triggers the positive response, like the release of dopamine based on how the neuron responds to that certain sound. But when there's a good rhythm or tempo or volume, the mind will also make it fit like a puzzle based on what you've already heard or know, even in just overall life. But like said, once the puzzle comes together and the attributes of the wavelengths correlate with our mind, we then do create these positive emotions through what is known to us as music. All right, that was it.
That was wonderful.